Jimmy in National City, California. Hey, Jimmy, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good, very good. My point, or the question that I really want to ask is, for somebody to change the Second Amendment, if I'm not mistaken, wouldn't it take two-thirds of the House of Representatives, two-thirds of the Congress, and then two-thirds of the states?
Three-quarters of the states.
On that before anybody can come and get anybody's gun?
Yeah, it would take three-quarters of the states. Yes.
So, we need to hear this more on your program and on the other programs. Every time the NRA rubes come out here and say that they're coming after your guns, that needs to be said, that, hey, it takes two-thirds of this, two-thirds of that, two-thirds of the states before any.
Well, there is one other route, and this route is being promoted right now in emails to gun owners by I don't know if it's the NRA specifically, but, I've seen a couple of these things, which is that the Supreme Court expanded the so-called right to own a weapon under the Second Amendment. They expanded that dramatically with the Heller case and into areas that just never really existed in American law before. And so this, what the Supreme Court giveth, the Supreme Court can take away. And the concern of the right-wing gun nuts at this particular moment is that if Hillary Clinton becomes president, she will appoint 2, 3, 4 members of the Supreme Court, and they will reverse Heller. They will say there is no individual right to own a gun in the Constitution. The Constitution's Second Amendment says that that right is limited to and for the purposes of having a well-regulated militia, and therefore the only people who can own guns are members of the National Guard or the military or the police, and which is our well-regulated militia. And thus we can go around and take everybody's gun away. Now, I can't imagine the Supreme Court actually going that far. I would be very happy if they dialed back Heller. But that's the dystopian scenario, at least from a gun owner's point of view, that's being put out by people who are saying you got to vote for Donald Trump because the Supreme Court's at stake. The Supreme Court's at stake because it's going to be all about guns. And of course, a lot of those gun manufacturers, they really know that it's all about money. It's about Citizens United, because if the NRA couldn't continue to buy politicians, they'd be impotent. They'd be totally toothless. But that's what's going on. So.
The Second Amendment?
Say what?
The Supreme Court can change the Second Amendment?
They can change the meaning of it, yes. The Second Amendment says...
It doesn't have to be ratified by the Congress?
Doesn't need to be ratified by anybody. The Supreme Court in 1803 in the Marbury versus Madison case took onto themselves the power to strike down law and to make law, and based on what they think the Constitution says. And I forget what year Heller was decided, but up until that point, there was no individual right to own a weapon recognized at law in the United States, in the Constitution or anywhere else. And the Supreme Court ruled that, no, the Second Amendment doesn't mean, in order to have a well-regulated militia, the right of an individual or the right of a citizen to bear arms shall not be abridged. What the Supreme Court actually meant was, forget about that militia stuff. They were just talking about the right of individuals. Now, this is a very, very shaky legal argument that the gun lobby had been putting forward since the 60s, and working its way up through all these legal journals and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is that the Second Amendment, that the Supreme Court can say what the Second Amendment means. And as they said in Marbury, essentially, the Constitution says what we say it says. Period. We're the final arbiters. So that's what's going on with all that, Jimmy. Thanks a lot for the call.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann program. Call 202-808-9925.
Which, frankly, in my mind, is a stronger argument for doing everything you can to make sure that not only is Hillary Clinton president, but Democrats are controlling the Senate.